generally, like, human beings are reasonably good people. Give that helping hand if you ask. That's what I've found is, like, if you make the ask, if you don't make the ask, people are none the wiser and kind of just get going about stuff that's consuming their own day.
The key to takeaway is it's more a mindset thing than anything, right? Always believing that there's a way around it, always understanding that the world is a massive place, the market is a huge place, no matter what market you're in. There's always a way out, you know, there's always a way to be better, to be smarter, to be more agile, to just be different. There's millions of USPs out there that you can look at and pivot towards, and being small and agile, you can pivot pretty quickly.
Right, come on then. What are we doing? What are we talking about today?
Quite a bit, actually. But hot takes for the week. Anything hot that's come up on your radar this week?
There's a lot of right-wing UK-based stuff on there. There is... Oh, do you know what there is on Twitter, actually? There's like all of these, like, I don't even know how you would class them. Entrepreneurs, maybe. Probably more solopreneurs. That are like, oh, I watched Elon Musk bathe for 60 days and here's what I learned. Do you like them style of Twitter posts?
Yeah, like the thread boys. I think they call them.
Oh, man. Where do you even get the time to do that?
Yeah.
What about yourself? What's been going on?
This week I've realised how hard technology is. We've been building a bit of a new recruitment platform to support the outsourcing or offshoring agency, and just making shit work is really difficult. And this is in like a no-code, low-code environment. I can't imagine what it's like in, you know, full code. So it's been very interesting to, understand how that kind of stuff works. But to be honest, it's been a pretty, up and down week. But, you know, we move on. Let's get into it this week. So this week, I thought we'd talk about our kind of playbook on and the story behind being bullied by some of the largest corporates in New Zealand over the last year, and what we have learnt, you know, I suppose the journey you go through and the up and downs you go through emotionally when you start getting served letters and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought it'd be a cool place to go just for other people out there who potentially maybe not just are experiencing, you know, high level corporate bullying, but maybe, you know, competitors after them, or, you know, they just feel like people are kind of trying to take their business or trying to stop them, or they have massive roadblocks and the process we kind of went throughout that. But maybe you could tee up the scene and how this all kind of started, and I'll fill in the blanks where I can, because obviously I kind of supported you through it, and it was interesting. It was an interesting time.
Yeah, you beat me to the punchline, because I was going to say, oh, Josh, that sounds like such a juicy topic. Yeah, I guess for those listening, this is in relation to our food business. Little dumpling trucks that innocently sit where we place them and siphon dumplings out into the wider community. But a particular spot in town that we have.
Yeah.
But essentially, Company A, Company B, and us utilise the same shared parking space. Company A has its own landlord, but Company A does not own the car park, but utilises the car park. Company B is a private tenant of another landlord who owns a car park, and that's who we've got the relationship with. And he said, just park your truck anywhere. Famous last words, I suppose, because that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, okay. Well, so I suppose for a bit of backstory, you know, there was a business that came up for sale. Some friends owned it. We thought at the time, had a few life events going on at the time, so wasn't all that interested in the purchase, but it was kind of you that I suppose led the actual acquisition itself. And, you know, the business, small dumpling hut business, you know, but really loyal follower base, really great food, great quality, and we purchased it in the hope that we could just kind of continue operations how things were. Right? It was very much to be a bit of a battle that kind of started playing out. Now, for those of you listening who aren't from Taupo, Taupo is a very small town, probably 30,000 people. It blows up to 90,000 people in the summer, so it gets extremely busy. And food trucks are a great growing marketplace. So we thought, you know, there's already a loyal customer base, there's already a great following on Facebook. Let's just go kind of like nail it out. But oh, how were we wrong? Because in this, in the same light, there's regulations, there's places you can park, there's places you can't park. And our best bet from all the advice we were given was find someone with some private land that you can kind of use to put the food trailer on, and that will save half your battles, if not 3/4 of your battles, right? So yeah, that's kind of like where it all started, I suppose. Maybe you could take it from there, Alex. Like,
when we did purchase the business originally, and the process that we went through, obviously we opted for like an asset sale rather than a share sale, meaning that we could choose which assets and liabilities we took on rather than kind of taking everything on. During our process on deciding for that to be the route that we took, what do you felt were the biggest motivators for us to go down the asset purchase route? Because ultimately, in the end, we purchased a lot of signage, freezers, the brand name, the IP, manufacturing agreement. And I feel like that was very tactical.
Yeah.
I remember us like I had a session with our legal partners, Legal Vision, on drafting what that purchase agreement would actually look like. Why do you think we chose that?
I think we knew the previous owners quite well. And in that sense, we also knew a little bit of their business acumen. We knew a little bit of some of the maybe not above board practices that were occurring. And the difference between an asset and a share sale is that in an asset sale, you're just buying the assets inside the business. So be that trucks or manufacturing agreements or customer databases and all that kind of stuff, you're just taking the assets outside of the business. Where if you do a share sale, you're buying the entire company and all its liabilities and all its assets. So we decided to do an asset sale because we weren't sure of the previous owner's tax liabilities, where they were at. We knew that there were some contracts that hadn't been maybe
fulfilled or closed out,
fulfilled on their side. There've been some relationships pretty severely burnt. And even doing an asset sale, purchasing just the assets inside the business, that doesn't necessarily mean from a public perception point of view that we got away with some of the things that had happened in the background, right? The public doesn't, it's a legal thing, but the public still sees it as just a brand. And you know, there were definitely a lot of stuff came out of the woodwork of what had been happening behind the scenes, debts that hadn't been paid, people that weren't treated all that well, employees that would have a very, very strong case for grievances. So, yeah, in that sense, it was a smart thing to do the asset sale over the share sale.
Yeah, and also it was a pretty simple process, wasn't it? You know, we had a sale and purchase agreement drafted, listed on there what that was to include, nominal amount to pay and the payment terms, and that was fully signed and things were kind of handed over. So I think from our perspective, it was definitely the right choice to make in terms of acquisition.
For sure. For people listening, obviously take legal advice if you're ever going through an acquisition of any description. And there's cases both ways. There's cases to do a share sale, do an asset sale, but it's very, very subjective to what you're buying and where they are in business and your belief of how it's been operated in the past, I suppose.
One thing I was going to say is that one thing that I felt we had going for us with being, a two-man unit, you could somewhat say back as a startup business, is that we were agile. We literally had a business on wheels. So we, and this is where a lot of the bigger corporates don't have that agility, literally, is that they've got to get so much red tape with inside the big corporate stuff. And that just, doubles down on, as a SME, SMB, however you want to label it, one of the big advantages that you do have is that agility and being able to make impulse decisions and move. And, in the world of our offshoring stuff, it's been able to draft an idea for a new AI talent hub and it kind of MVP in a few weeks, or, we sit down and we see a social media management opportunity come through and within half a day you've got an offer and you've got a bit of a workflow and a commercial model. Like, you've got that agility being quite a small, intimate, privately owned SME versus them bigger players that exist in the market.
I suppose relating this to, other people who either maybe being bullied by big corporates or, experiencing some type of competition, or have entered a market that is not a market, but, started a business that has got someone after them in some way. I think the key to takeaway is it's more a mindset thing than anything, right? Like always believing that there's a way around it, always understanding that the world is a massive place. The market is a huge place, no matter what market you're in. You could say that starting an offshoring business is probably the worst idea in the world. It's saturated. You can tell yourself all these stories, but when you really look at how big the world is and what money is out there and what need is out there, and like you say, being a small business, you can craft your offer, to support a customer base or a client base that these bigger companies can't. They just can't do it because they're so set in their ways. There's always a way out. There's always a way to be better, to be smarter, to be more agile, to just be different. Like there's millions of USPs out there that you can look at and pivot towards. And yeah, like you say, being small and agile, you can pivot pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I recall like from doing sales calls in the past where you get the question like, oh, how are you different from the Towers of the world, or from the Amaptas of the world, or from insert huge outsourcing business? I think it was from some of the sales psych stuff we did. It was just like, well, you're currently on the call with the founder of the business. It's not some SDR that's kind of learning the ropes and can only operate within this kind of box that you're in. You're literally on the phone with the founder right now, and that's kind of where the intimacy and that relationship rapport starts. And maintaining it is such an advantage over some of the bigger players. Yeah,
so I say, to kind of sum that up, I suppose, when you are dealing with that competition, and sometimes I will admit the competition isn't even real. It's just a figure of your imagination, right? Like I remember, I think we had an inquiry from one of the other outsourcing agencies come in, and instantly my mind was like, oh, we're being targeted. And we had like 7 clients, and I was, it was not even like a big deal, but my mind was like, oh, that's us done. We're done. Or you see another agency pop up and you haven't launched any marketing or whatever, and you think, oh, we're not going to get any more business. Sometimes it's just a competition of your own mind.
Do you think there's something there, Josh, around like when these situations pop up that we, how you're just saying competition can often be made up, like it's just sits between your ears? Talking about like the trespass stuff with the dumpling business, do you feel that in those moments your brain can definitely make it feel like it's a bigger problem than it actually is?
Yeah, definitely when you haven't experienced it for the first time, like, or you haven't experienced it ever. It's, having lawyers sending emails and, serving letters that look very formal and have big words on it, and you're not sure where you stand, whether you're Arthur or Martha, is a very unsettling place to be when you've invested capital, and it literally can just feel like your whole business is at risk. And sometimes it is, sometimes, I don't know, you might have infringed on some IP or I don't know, something like that, but it can definitely feel like the world is caving in very quickly.
Yeah. And I think especially when it's something that comes out of the blue and not necessarily on the radar. Like for me, putting that there, in my head, it was like, we've got permission off the landowner, we're paying for our own infrastructure, like we're good to go. We now just need to open up. We need to do heaps of marketing. We need to get cranking. And then all of a sudden, this problem in an envelope comes flying out of nowhere. And I think, when it's something that like you least expect, it can rock the boat a little bit. And like we're pretty lucky that we've got ourselves to bounce things off and rationalize and
cry.
Yeah, cry in tandem. But I could only imagine what it would feel like if it was, you're just a sole operator and that is, like where do I turn next? Do I go and lawyer myself up with cash that I've not got? Do I blissfully ignore it, but then there's no way you're getting to sleep because it's just going to be in the back of your head the whole time.
Yeah, I think like that's where it's important to know, to make sure you've got a strong network around you, because even if you and I weren't in business together, there'd be people I'd call or message or I'd chuck it in one of the groups that we're a part of to get perspective. I think in those moments, the reason that a co-founder is so valuable is because they give you a different perspective. If they didn't give you a different perspective, you don't need them, right? Like you can do it yourself. And if you had the same perspective as everyone inside a mentorship group, get out, find a different one. But I think the key in these moments where it's stressful, you're experiencing something that you haven't experienced before, or something's come from far left field that you had no idea was coming, is to like collect your own perspective, collect your thoughts, collect your feelings, and then like gain perspective from other people. And usually it's really helpful to have people in your network who have experienced it before. Like we've got people in our network who, millionaires who have been dealing with land sales for 3 years now, spent $1 million just trying to get a land sale through. They'll know people who you can talk to, or if they don't know the information themselves, they'll know someone you can talk to. If they can help, they 100% will help, because they'll know what it feels like, and that can be very soothing and very comforting in those situations, that you're not the only person who's been through something like this, although you want to feel special, because everyone wants to feel special, like, oh, it's only me that ever goes through something. It's always me. The sooner you find someone who's been through it before you, the quicker you're going to be able to get some perspective and move through it.
Yeah, and generally, like, human beings are reasonably good people, other than my altercation this morning. And will generally, give that helping hand if you ask. I think that's what I've found, is like, if you make the ask, if you don't make the ask, people are none the wiser and kind of just get going about stuff that's consuming their own day. I guess to give some clarity on that, the owners that we purchased a business from, at this stage, at the time of purchase, the business had been completely shut down. They'd given away or sold the trucks, like they had no locations operating, they were off selling the portfolio. So this was a new location following the ownership now sitting with us. And no, they had never operated from that spot in town, so we were none the wiser. Wasn't part of our due diligence that we did.
Or didn't do. Yeah.
And did we consider quitting any? Well, no. And that's, I think, it's so hard to quit when you've thrown capital into something. You're looking for, like, that's literally the ultimate last resort, I think. I'd have been cooking dumplings at home and selling them on the street before I'd be packing it in, so.
In your head, through those moments or those acquisitions, you think it's going to go a certain way. Like, you're like, yep, I'm going to do this, I'm going to buy this, we're going to find this, we're going to sell this, and you're going to be happy as Larry. But yeah, it never goes the way you expect it. But the other saying I really like to live by is like the idea of like this too will pass. Like, if everything's going well, it's going to pass. If everything's going bad, it'll pass. And the more you live by that, I find the more, when these situations do pop up, it's like, yeah, okay, it's going to pass. It is going to pass. We're going to find a way out. Mm-hmm. If you truly believe it, it does kind of give you a light at the end of the tunnel, rather than getting very narrow focused and kind of fixating on the problem, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, the world keeps on spinning, the clocks keep on ticking. And
like you say, we're just on a big ball of rocks spinning through nothingness, going nowhere.
Amen.
And what's your other favorite saying? If you get 1 million monkeys just slapping keys, eventually, they will be able to type Macbeth word for word.
Macbeth. Oh. Now that would send you to sleep if this hasn't already.
They will. All right, we'll finish that episode there. Appreciate everyone listening, as always. I've actually, since the last recording, I have seen someone out and about who actually recognized me from the podcast. So we've basically made it. We've basically cracked it. We've got, I think, 100 downloads now. So we're probably in the top, But yeah, appreciate everyone listening. We've basically cracked it because I got a public acknowledgement, so that's cool. And hopefully, if you guys have experienced any level of bullying or any level of, competition or poor competition practices that helps you in some way, just know that it'll pass. There are ways out, and find some perspective pretty quickly. So go back and listen to our other episodes. They might be a bit more interesting than this one. Who knows? But appreciate you guys' time. Catch you later. Peace.
Sure.